And if you feel like retweeting, by all means, I tagged all of you in the tweet. And we're live, folks. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, I've really been looking forward to this discussion. You know, as Bitcoin, we're all Bitcoiners here. We always keep a close eye on what's going on globally, economically, monetarily, in the investment landscape and the macro landscape. And obviously, there's, you know, each of your respective countries have been in the news lately. You know, maybe not necessarily the type of press that you know you're happy to receive, but you know, inflation is something that's coming for everybody around the world on a fiat standard. I think we're all in agreement that that is inevitable, and it's just a matter of when. And of course, in that dynamic, some will be affected sooner than others, and that's why we're here as Bitcoiners. We think that a better monetary system and standard is now available to people. And it's incumbent on everybody, if they wish to protect themselves, to learn about that and learn how to engage in it, and obviously to use it to protect their wealth and the wealth of their family and loved ones. And so I wanted to put this discussion together today to get some insight into people or countries and systems, rather, that may be further you know, brought forward on the timeline. You know, and maybe that will give us some insight into how these things unfold, some of the repercussions when they do unfold, what life is like in some of these systems, and how each of you are using Bitcoin to you know, protect yourselves and any loved ones or family. So I guess brief introductions. I know some of you want to maintain some anonymity, so only share as much as you like. But Thomas, why don't we start it off with you, just kind of where you are, who you are, and your Bitcoin, a brief Bitcoin background.
All right. My name is Thomas Salman. I'm from Lebanon. I'm currently living in the rural part of Lebanon, but right now I'm in Beirut. I just finished work, so I stayed here. You know, I started. I first knew about Bitcoin back in late 2016 from university, from a guy, like most of you probably know him. He's called Saifuddin Ammous. He used to be my professor at university. So during classes, he used to talk about, you know, he used to drift off of the curriculum and talk about Austrian economics and, you know, Bitcoin stuff and all of that, and how much he would, he would destroy the entire syllabus, you know, occasionally. And, you know, this is how I first got into it. But I made my first Bitcoin purchase, maybe it was like 2017 during the bull market. And ever since, you know, I fell down the rabbit hole, and, you know, now I'm here talking about it with you guys. And, you know, after what all that happened in Lebanon, it sounds like a really smart idea to, you know, buy Bitcoin. So yeah, that's how I got into it, and that's, like, you know, a brief introduction about myself. You know, Bitcoin.
Nice. Daniel?
Well, I live in Argentina, but I'm actually Brazilian. And that is how I got in contact with Bitcoin, because I moved to Argentina in 2010, but I working remotely to some company in Brazil. And I had to get my money from Brazil to Argentina. And all the bank process was very, it's very, how can I say, too many, there's too many blocks. And the way I started learning about Bitcoin, and that's the way I found to get my money from Brazil to Argentina. That was about 2013. And then I saw the whole 2017 bull market and something like snap. And I said, well, I have to participate in this market because it's really what a different it's a way of getting my money safe, and that's where we went from.
Nice. Zia?
Hey there, I'm Zia. I live in Iran. I've started learning about Bitcoin late 2016 and early 2017. I've I I'm good with computer stuff, with hardware, computer, and a friend asked me if he if he can join multiple processors start uh, to start mining, and I was very curious about what is this mining thing, and I actually wanted to build a mining rig with the GPUs and all of that. So I started learning about Bitcoin when I built this mining rig for him, and then so I come from a English literature background, and I've studied about philosophy and literary criticism and all of that. So it was very interesting to me the the economic and the power relations and the mostly humanistic studies about Bitcoin. So I started reading about it, and I was down the rabbit hole. And since I was good with computer stuff too, so I started learning about the network, about the things. I actually was very interested in what was happening in early 2017 up to the 1st of August, the hard fork, actually the soft fork, actually, yeah, with the user activated soft fork stuff. So I got interested in Bitcoin, and I started actually earning Bitcoin because we live in Iran, and Iran is suffering from a case of inflation for decades now, and I started learning about savings technology actually, which is Bitcoin, by accumulating and earning uh, yeah, this is the way. This is I see a pattern here. I see people from countries which suffer from inflation seeing Bitcoin as a store of value. So this was the case for me too. We also suffer from a very heavy case of censorship here, and censorship on the internet level and on the news media and all of that. So uh, seeing something which is censorship resistant was very made me very optimistic about this thing. So I thought to myself that if this thing doesn't work in anywhere in the world, it will work in Iran because we need it. So that was the go for me.
Nice. Stackmore?
Yeah, well, so I kind of got lucky, but I was not able to get into Bitcoin as early as I wanted. So initially it was 2011, and it was this short period of my life that I was into gaming because my college was over and I literally had nothing to do. I was just waiting to go back to my country, and in that period of time I started to play this random game, and we had a clan of 100 people, and there was this Swedish guy that was like telling all of us like you should get into Bitcoin, it's the new money and this and that. And I listened to him, I downloaded the node and all that stuff, and actually there's this computer behind me. It still has the node, Bitcoin 050, and it still syncs today. So that was my kind of turning point. I could be very lucky because I would have completely forgotten about it. I turned this old computer, I don't know, 2 years ago, and checked a couple of wallets and everything was empty. But that's how I first initially heard about Bitcoin. Then during 2013, there was the Cyprus banking crisis, and there was an increase in Bitcoin prices. Then it was in my radar again, but then I didn't trust this exchange because it was located in Cyprus, and Cyprus companies are a little sketchy from our side because we know a lot of fraudulent activities that happened over there, blah, blah, blah. And finally, I got my first Bitcoin in early 2017. It was a couple of our friends, and we were talking how to save, stop, have a good store of value with the shitcoin lira, against the shitcoin lira. And then we started to get Bitcoin and all that stuff. Like also got into stocks at the same time, but lost all my interest in stocks and everything else. It's like Bitcoin now. Yeah. And I think I came from a family that's in finance and economics. Like great grandfather was like a minister of finance, one of the first ministers of finance of Turkey. My grandfather was the lawyer working for World Bank, but my grandfather opted out also. So he left the World Bank and he started to work on the farm. And yeah, and I'm opted out also. Like, fiat, I have no intention to go back to it. So yeah, that's basically it.
And Stackmore, you made reference to the computer behind you. Your camera is off, right?
I know.
Okay. Just
I
making
keep
sure.
it close by. Yeah.
Right.
I'll turn it on and then.
No, up to you. No problem.
Yeah, yes.
Well, thanks for the intro, guys. So Thomas, I'm going to bring it back to you. Obviously it's been an eventful year in Lebanon for a number of different reasons, and in Beirut. What has been, I believe the central bank was set ablaze, burned down. Was it the primary central bank or just like a regional one?
I believe you're talking about the videos that the Bitcoin community got the hold of them, right? There was a series of protesters just burning private banks all over the country,
right?
And just shattering the glasses and whatever. But there were also some protests next to the central bank, the main central bank in Beirut on Hamra Street. But they couldn't actually go in there and break stuff because there was a lot of security and a lot of
right.
So yeah,
someone's got to protect the money printers.
Exactly. They're not like protecting the actual money because there's no money.
Right.
They're just protecting whatever, God knows what. But it was like a cool message that the problem is there. It is the banks. But just people need to understand how to opt out of this system.
Yeah.
And a lot of people actually, we have like this group. It's called Bitcoin du Liban, just like a Banque du Liban is like the central bank of Lebanon. So we made this like a Telegram group called Bitcoin du Liban. It's a French Bitcoin of Lebanon or Bank of Lebanon. So ever since the protests in 2019, we had like more than tripled people into this group asking stuff about Bitcoin, trying to figure out what the hell is this. And, it really started to, people started to actually get into it when the central bank started the capital controls on the remittances. So what happened is that if you have a relative who's living in France and Canada and America trying to send you some money, the central bank would confiscate more than half of this money, right? So like they would send you like, let's say $1,000 US. They would give you this $1,000 US at the rate of 3,000 LBP, while the actual rate in the market is like 7,000 and even reached 10,000. So.
And what was the reasoning they gave for doing that?
Okay, so they do that because they want to take away your dollars, all right, and use these dollars for the subsidies and other things like the debt and whatever. So ever since the crisis, ever since the Ponzi scheme got uncovered, the central bank basically, the banks basically lost all of their money, and most of the dollars in the economy are now in the central bank. So in a way, the government was trying, just to shut people up They were trying to subsidize everything from fuel to, bread, most of these so-called essentials. So in order to keep these subsidies going, they had to confiscate the dollars. So one of the ways to do this is, when I send you money, they just take the dollars and give me Lebanese pounds, printed Lebanese pounds instead, at an artificial rate, which is not the actual black market rate. So this is when people were like, no, we're not going to play this game. We're going to look at alternatives. Many people looked at coins and all of that, but Bitcoin was like very interesting and revolutionary kind of thing. So yeah, so people started talking about that more. And I actually wrote about this in an article I made called Bitcoin Adoption in Lebanon. So this act by the government, by the central bank, was going to be the one thing that will set off, the hyper Bitcoinization of Lebanon. Like people finally saw a use value in Bitcoin, so now they will use it. That's why they will use it at first, but people, because of this need, if you want to call it, they fell down the rabbit hole, and they're just asking questions and getting into our group, asking us. We've been trying to teach them as much as possible on how to secure their Bitcoin on their wallets. And most of the time, it's just the young people like me in their 20s and their 30s sending money because they work abroad, sending money to their parents. So you have to teach someone in like their 50s or their 60s about how to use a Bitcoin wallet and all of that. So yeah, that's the main issue here, because trying to get older people into this technology, because they're the one receiving the remittances from their offspring.
Sure. And so what is the, obviously there's been protests and stuff like that, but how is the government explaining the inflation and these practices of basically taking the US dollars or having an artificial exchange rate? How is the government explaining that? How are they articulating that they're going to get control of the inflation? And you made reference to it briefly, but like kind of the man or woman on the street, if they're not familiar with Bitcoin, like are people trying to protect themselves by going into all sorts of assets like real estate, equities, gold, silver, that kind of stuff? Or as you said, is there starting to be a shift toward looking at Bitcoin specifically? Like what's the kind of the perception of what's going on by the normal people there?
Okay, first from the government perspective, they don't really care. Like they're just gonna take your money, right? And that's why people are protesting. Things are happening without their consent. But at the same time, they're just trying to justify it with the subsidies, with the fact that that we have a balance of trade, centralized balance of trade. We need to import things to the country, and we need to give these things to the poor. And the more people are poor, the more they get poorer, the more the government actions become more or less justified. You know what I mean? So just because I'm poor, at least the government is feeding me. That's what they say. But in fact, that's not how you get out of poverty. So that's how the government is trying to justify itself. But the protests are kind of still ongoing, but they're not as fierce as they used to be in the beginning of the protests in general. Mm-hmm. And to answer your second question regarding what are people doing to protect themselves, there's a lot of people who are buying real estate right now. So let's say you had a bank account with deposits in the bank. Naturally, because of the capital controls, you cannot withdraw your money anymore. So you basically lost them. So what's happening is that people are able to withdraw this money. Let's say you have, I don't know, $100,000 in the bank. You can withdraw them at an artificial rate, or at two artificial rates. One at 3,900 per dollar. That's only for one time a month, and at a limited $1,000 per month, as an example. Each bank has its own rules. And The rest is at the other official rate, which is 1,500 per dollar. So what's happening is that, let's say I have a land, all right, and I have a lot of debt, and I want to close that debt, or maybe I lost my job or whatever. I can just sell you my land for a banker's check. So you give me your deposits in the bank. So I just bought your deposits and I gave you the land. And now I can use your deposits to simply close off my debt, or maybe just use them to live. And that's what a lot of people with big bulk deposits have been trying to do, buying apartments, buying land, and this is the exact reason why the real estate prices haven't gone down at all during this crisis. People are just buying real estate, but at a artificial rate, if you want to call it, and using bankers' checks and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But no one would actually, buy land using dollars, because U.S. dollars right now are more useful than real estate in Lebanon. But as I said before, the main people who are looking at Bitcoin are those who want to receive money from abroad.
Right.
Because how else would you receive money?
Right.
If they can't send your money through the bank, they can't send it through OMT. Either way, it will get confiscated. This is why people are looking into Bitcoin and I'm not gonna lie, other altcoins as well. But I think Bitcoin is the sexier option, if you want to call it.
Right.
So I think this is how people are actually getting into it and trying to adopt this technology more and more. But
Right.
this is just in brief what people are doing with their money, lost money, if you want to call it.
Yeah. Daniel, what is the economic landscape looking like right now in Argentina? How have people responded to the issues with the currency over the last number of years? And what is kind of the perception and use of Bitcoin over on your side of things?
Well, I heard Thomas, and there are many similarities to what happens here, and I I'm kind of rusty in English, but I have to get it going.
You're good. You're
Yeah, I
good.
see many similarities. Well, Argentina went to hyperinflation in the early 90s, and after that, the peso was basically pegged to the dollar. So 1 peso was equal $1. It worked really good. It was 10 years that it worked, but the government debt got so big that in near 2000, 2001, it became unsustainable, and the government basically confiscated all the US dollar deposits because they had to pay debt, government debt, and devaluated the peso 1 to 4. So from one day to the other, you had a fourth of your savings was converted to peso, and the dollar were all confiscated. So you guys know that in 2001 there was a lot of protests here, and people were just ready to burn down all the banks. They went to the streets and banged all the doors, and they wanted their deposit back. And that's when it got unpegged from the dollar. Today the dollar is 1 peso is equal to $1 is equal to 130 pesos. That means 130 fold from of devaluation. And the government hasn't shrink its debt. It keeps on printing money and it keeps on spending. And what we have now here in Argentina is a restriction to buy dollars. You can only buy $200 a month. That's the only amount that you're permitted right now. And so people started looking for from 2019 from the change of government to today, people want to get rid of the peso. They don't want, the peso is trash money. It's just to pay your bills and to pay expensive living, pero to save, you have $200, and what else do you do with the rest if you save, because not many people get to save. But if you have money left to save, you try start looking for alternatives. And one of the big alternatives that's surging here is Bitcoin, because people already started to understand the economics and how it can't be devaluated, it can't be inflated, and people are really, it's really picking up here. Last year, a lot of exchanges surged, and you start to see a lot of publicity in the streets for normal people to stimulating to start buying Bitcoin. And the other, like Thomas said, not only Bitcoin, but people have also discovered the stable coins, Tether. It's a way to get into the dollar without the government being able to touch your money. So Bitcoin is really picking up here, and but also because basically there's a dollar shortage here in Argentina, and I believe in the whole world there's a dollar shortage because governments are getting too big. They need the dollars to pay their debts, and they decided unilaterally that they're going to control who can have or not the dollars. And basically, that's what's happening here. Argentinians are a big fan, always have been, of saving in dollars. But now that there are so many restrictions, I believe that Bitcoin is picking up.
And what's the government's approach to Bitcoin and cryptocurrency transactions, exchanges, et cetera? I'm assuming they wouldn't allow it if they're trying to keep a tight control on capital.
For now, I think they haven't found a way to limit it, because it's not prohibited yet. I don't know if at some point they're going to put restrictions, but for now, exchange work, and you can buy Bitcoins without restrictions. For now, I don't know what the future holds, but
That's interesting. And do you think that there's more interest in stable coins than Bitcoin right now?
there is a lot of interest in stablecoin because the dollar, since many decades, it's like people. I used to say like the dollar is like it's like the ticket to freedom for once. Just like to make a comparison, since our fathers, our grandfathers, they always had a dollar like it's safer to save in dollars than to save in the money that Latin America countries print, because of inflation and because the dollar is the world reserve currency, and that's like there's a big culture in saving in dollars.
And are you able to be open about your interest in Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies, or is that kind of a dangerous thing to do?
I I am like I gone down the rabbit hole, and I used to evangelize a lot more to my friends. You have to buy Bitcoin because there's only 21 million. It can't be inflated. It's not centralized. But the normal people, when they see the variation, they get a little suspicious. But I try to explain no, but you have to look at the long term. Long term, in 10 years, look at what Bitcoin did in 10 years. And people are like, yeah, but if I bought in 20,000 and now it's worth 3,000 and I lost all my money. It's really, it's kind of hard to get people going, but once they understand, they understand.
Right. You can't unsee it once you see
You
it.
can
Right?
once you see it, you can't unsee
Yeah.
it. And right now, it's becoming a big option here because there's too many restrictions on the dollar.
Yeah. Zia, can you tell me what's going on in Iran economically with the currency, what the government's response has been, and what people, or to the extent people are looking at Bitcoin to try to preserve capital and avoid some of the damaging effects of government monetary policy?
Yeah, so I should put a disclaimer here. I'm not very good in economics. So first, I should say this, and then I'm gonna tell you about my experience and what I see going on here, because I see just like what Daniel said and Thomas said, I see a lot of similarities in what the government does to control this thing, control the inflation thing. They're not trying to control the inflation, actually, they're trying to control what the people think about the inflation. So they do all this stuff. They blame the black market dealers because you can. It's mostly unofficial and black market status here for buying like dollar, dirhams, euro, anything. So we have a lot of black markets in Iran because most official markets are a failure. So this is the case. So yeah, they blame the black market dealers. They blame people for buying USD. I remember such a thing happened also in Turkey, where the I don't know what is he called, the prime minister, or was there were people enthusiastic about burning USD. This happened identically in Iran. So we have this thing that they call for people to sell their currency, and which is very foolish because it's much better. It makes sense. No one is such a fool to hold something which is devalued like for 2,500 times in the last 4 decades. So when this government, so it's not like government. It's much more negative than a government. It's some kind of a dictatorship and a regime here. So when this started, when 4 decades ago, the USD was 100 reals. So one USD, 100 reals. Nowadays, it's 250,000 reals, which is multiplied like 2,500 times. So we have it. It goes in multiple prices every 1 or 2 years, and try to conceive this number 2,500 times. So yeah, we have a very bad case of inflation here because like in the last 6 months, in the last years or so, the USD has gone up. It's like 5 times the price that it was last year. So if you wanted to
Wow.
buy an iPhone, if you wanted to buy an iPhone, like you could have bought it like with saving for 6 months, but now you should save for like maybe 4 or 5 years. So look at this picture. So yeah, this inflation thing was I can't say it's driving Bitcoin here in Iran, but I can say that most people who are holding Bitcoin, they see it as an investment for storing their value, because it's not very easy to get your hands on physical cash, physical USD cash, I mean. It's much more difficult. We have also restrictions on how much USD you can hold here in Iran. It's about like 10,000 USD. So imagine if you have like 10,000 USDs, you're doing a crime here. So um, so people can hold Bitcoin, and they can actually maybe try to hide it better, and they can hold it in bigger numbers, and it's still not considered as a crime, but they're trying to consider Bitcoin also like USD. And if you hold more than one Bitcoin, and right now, which is about $10,000, it would be like a crime also to in the future, maybe, I don't know. Most people right now are using Bitcoin for they're storing their value in Bitcoin, and some people just like other countries, they try to use it for trading and doing like they want to get money out of Bitcoin. So this is normal, but the people who are using it like the genuine purpose would be those who are doing a remittance right nowadays with Bitcoin. People are using it to store their value. People are using it to buy digital goods. Like I'm using a VPN right now, just to I told you before the show starts. I told you that I'm using a VPN, and I couldn't buy Bitcoin, buy a VPN if I didn't have Bitcoin. So I bought this VPN from like a US company actually. So to use just to get connected to the world. So people are using it for digital goods. Physical goods are blocked and limited because most countries don't send us physical goods, but we are in dire needs of physical goods because of this terrible situation with the economy here and the closed economy. We can't import stuff here in Iran, and if we import them, the limited people, which are government people mostly, who import stuff here, like import a mobile phone, a monitor, anything, they sell it for triple the time, triple the price. So you see you see what's happening. So you're in a shitty uh, economy, and also you have to deal with these prices, which are unfair and cruel. You can get a monitor for $100 in the US, but you should get the same monitor for $300 here. So you see this, we are in dire need of importing physical goods with Bitcoin if there are businesses which send us. This could be a very good use case too. I know that this can trigger a lot of people in Iran because we need to somehow circumvent this thing where most stuff here, imported stuff, are very expensive. Yeah, so the government is not handling this thing very good with the inflation. And right, like 2 years ago, when a new surge of inflation with the USD price and all of that started, the government tried to deny this thing. Like they denied that something is like the USD price is going up. They said that it's about like 40,000 reals, and no, people are like lying. Like people in the market are lying that this price is going up, and they carried on with this lie to this day. Like if you Google you Iranian real, I advise you to do this. Google Iranian real price to USD. It would be like 42,000 or something like this, 42,000 reals. But it's actually 250,000 because the 42,000 price is actually announced by the government. And you see this foolish thing, which the government denies this thing and is still denying it. Right now, they like this year, they're not emphasizing on that like the imaginary price, but they still haven't deleted this thing. It's in the central bank website that it says it's this price. So it's a very messed up situation where the government is trying to actually somehow enforce people into uh, keeping with this economy. They are very afraid of capital outflow, which they should be, because they're the holding your capital in the national currency is a stupid idea. Like most people nowadays know this. Like if I was asked if you were asking like a 50-year-old boy, he would tell you that it's a stupid idea. Because if you ask my grandfather, which is about like 75 years old, how you need to like use WhatsApp or I don't know, Telegram or something. He tells you that you should do this thing, which goes green. He calls it goes green, which is a VPN actually. So even a 75-year-old person here knows what's a VPN. So
Hmm.
see this. So you can't fool people anymore. Yeah.
And just
So
the
people, yeah.
just the last question on that was in terms of scale, how many people like not, I know you don't know exactly how many, but is there a sense that more and more people are looking at Bitcoin as a store of value, as something that allows them to evade capital controls, or is this still very, very, very niche?
Yeah, I can say that it was very niche in 2017. Right now, I see a lot of people uh, who consider Bitcoin like USD and gold to hold their value. Like Daniel told us about a friend who said like I bought Bitcoin in $20,000. Right now it's $3,000, and I lost all my money. If you did that in Iran, you wouldn't have lost your money because like when it was $20,000 in 2017, it was about 1 billion reals. So and right now it's about like 3 billion reals.
Wow.
So you see, it's $10,000 right now, but you are like
No, I
yeah,
against the peso here, they didn't lose their money. Against not against the peso, but against the dollar, yeah.
yeah. It's you see that it's people right now are uh like like most I told you that it's mostly in black market area. So people who use like gold or who buy gold or USD nowadays, they see that Telegram channels, these black market places, marketplaces, they see Telegram channels and they see websites which like announce the price of Bitcoin alongside with USD, with gold, and yeah, so it's I'm seeing this momentum, but I can't tell you numbers because it's Iran is like a black hole with regard with stats and statistics and all of that. Because like government should control people with lack of information, and they do it very well here. So that's why the censoring all the websites and all of that. Yeah.
Right. Um, Stackmore, how about you in Turkey in terms of what's been happening in the last few years economically with the currency and what people are, or how people have responded, how much they're aware of what's going on and what they've been trying to do to protect themselves or evade controls?
Yeah, like first of all, I think when you think about it, none of ours unit of account is our local currency. It's like we usually think in terms of dollars, like all of us, when we talked about it, we don't care if we have more local currency compared to a couple years ago, but if we have more dollars compared to a couple years ago, I think that's like a big tell on the situation. So I posted on the under the your tweet how I track my inflation. So normally people like track the inflation or they listen to the government data. And for my case, or I know a lot of people also would agree with this, I don't trust the government data about inflation. Uh, and I'm really a little lazy to do my own inflation tracker, because there are a lot of variables and all that stuff. But when I withdraw money and if I see a lot of new money, freshly printed money, I know that the Turkish lira will collapse, and it never misses. So it's like economy is actually real simple. Like it's not real complicated. If you have a lot of new money, the value of your money will shrink basically, and we get more and more new money recently. So in 2008, Turkey had reserves around, gold reserves included, we had 95 billion dollars worth of foreign exchange reserves. And in 2018, I had written that by 2020, Turkey would have less reserves than Harvard and Yale endowments combined. And we have less reserves than two schools basically right now as a country, because right now the reserves are, I don't know the exact number, it's under 75 billion. plus it includes the swap deals. So we have a swap deal with Qatar, for example. So we send them $15 billion worth of Turkish lira, and then they send us $15 billion of Qatar dinar or whatever, which has which doesn't really have a liquidity, you know? So it's just like, it makes it look like you have the money as a foreign currency, but actually you don't have anything because you cannot liquidate it against euro or dollar or anything else. So that's the case. The reserves are melting, and so the corrupt government started to do this. They started doing mega projects. Like, so we have the biggest airport in the world right now, and it's done by these 5 companies. And the deal was like the government guarantees a set number of passengers a year. Okay. And they pay the owners of the airport an amount times set number of passengers that they guaranteed. And this is usually very skewed. Like, it's really more than that the airport would normally have. So they pay extra, and nobody would really take this project because it's a huge project, and like, it's not like a free market to take the project because it's a, I don't know, $5 billion project, for example. And not a lot of companies outside of Turkey would have the courage to take on a project like this with the current government. So it's chronic capitalism in play. And certain people, they take these projects and they get deals for 20 years and then they continually get paid. Now we have these city hospitals. So they also have guaranteed patients, like that the government guarantees to pay per person. And so the budget was declared a couple weeks ago. And in the 7 months, the amount of rent that was paid for these city hospitals were more than it would cost to build those hospitals, you know? So they are literally emptying the budget. And I don't think it's going to get better any better. So like today we had this announcement. There is the personal retirement funds. So the social retirement fund in Turkey is collapsing like every other place. And the main reason of this was like this elections in 1980s. This guy who was running for the elections promised early retirement to people. So, and it was not like a couple of years, it was like over 10 years of early retirement. So what this does is that you get a lot of extra retired people, and like your workforce gets smaller to pay for the future compensation of the social retirement system. So the social retirement system is collapsing, and then they said, okay, we should have privatized retirement systems where you pay like the United States or whatever you like 401ks. And today they announced that they want to use the personal retirement, the money that's accumulated in the personal retirement for new projects and new investments, to issue new bonds and all that stuff. So yeah, they will probably take another $22 billion worth of money from people. And yeah.
Basically confiscating retirement.
Yeah. People have, like, the government literally has their eyes on people's retirement money, because this government is not doing good, and they are like in power since 2002. This is, I think, their last years. And before they leave, they want to make sure that they leave a wreck behind, I think so.
And so how are people feeling about what's being done to the currency, and what are they doing to try to protect themselves?
Well, like Zia said, we burned the dollars. So like in 2008, we had this crisis with the United States. We had this guy, he was a pastor, and they claimed that the Turkish government claimed that he was an agent. So he was under custody. And Trump wanted him to be released, and the Turkish president is like, no, I'm not going to release him like I need to be killed first before I release him, blah, blah, blah. And then Trump said, okay, I'll have some extra taxation on Turkish aluminum and steel. And 2 weeks later, the pastor was released. But in that 2 weeks, the Turkish lira jumped from 6 Turkish lira was $1, then it became 8 Turkish lira to $1 in 2 weeks. And people were protesting the dollars by burning the dollars, basically. And the funnier one is like, at some point we were protesting Netherlands, and people, I'm not kidding, people were literally stabbing oranges. This really happened, like, like, because it's the symbol of Netherlands. The flag is orange, So I know what, if people want to protest Bitcoin in the future, they may also stab oranges. So just keep that in mind, But it's like, it's a joke. Like, a lot of people don't understand the numbers. Yeah, there was this Turkish author called Aziz Nesin. And on TV, once he said 70% of the Turkish people are retarded. And he's right. But it's not just Turkey. The world is like that, I think. But,
Right.
it's
But
not like, yeah.
Are people buying real estate, precious metals? Like, how much interest is there in Bitcoin to try to preserve some of their capital that's just being stolen all over the place?
We are traditionally lucky because we live in Mediterranean, and like, to Turkish around also Mesopotamia area, like also Zia also knows, and like, and it's one of the oldest civilizations in the world. So, for example, there was this country back in the days called Lydia, really actually close to the place that I live right now. And it was the first place to mint coins, metals, gold coins. So gold coins were originated from here. And in this geography, we always had some love for gold, not because we understand it, but because it's more like a cultural / traditional thing, So at weddings or like circumcision ceremonies or this or that, you get a gold gift as a gold, So that's a big advantage for a lot of people. They have some gold saved up. And real estate, it's also used as a store of value. And actually, the government really subsidizes real estate. Like this year in June, the credits to buy new real estate were lowered to 6%, 6.9% by the government, where the inflation was 8.9% or something. So literally, it would make sense for anyone to take that credit to buy a house, So they really subsidized it. One reason of it was a lot of crony capitalism happens with the real estate market because land is interesting. Land is worth, let's say, $10 per meter square. But if it gets a building permit for a high rise, then the value of the land increases like 15 folds, 20 folds, So it's the easiest way to funnel money into people. So, yeah. And also on top of that, they didn't want the GDP growth numbers to look so bad. So they wanted to stimulate the economy. And giving cheap credit is the same thing as printing money.
And so there's not much interest in Bitcoin.
No, there's a good amount, and I was coming to Bitcoin. There's a good amount of interest in Bitcoin. Actually, one of the fourth exchange in the world is a Turkish Bitcoin exchange that was established in 2013. And the owner is a real good maximalist. Like, I saw a tweet the other day that for the CEO of Binance was shilling DeFi and all that coins, whereas the CEO of the Turkish exchange was like, don't buy DeFi, people will scam you. It's no different than a Ponzi and all that stuff, So we are lucky in that sense. And they do a lot of activities to raise awareness. like literally 2 weeks ago, they became the main sponsor of the Turkish national football team. So they do a fair, yeah, they do take responsibility, and they are good actors. And now they have over 1 million members,
Oh.
which is like not bad, like 1.5% of the population. So, and there's another exchange that's also like not doing bad. So it's getting more popular. Unfortunately, Turkish people are born to FOMO. So yeah, so people buy the tops and then they say, oh, okay, you know, like Bitcoin increases this much and sushi increases this much, so I should buy sushi and blah, blah, blah. So yeah, but
And
they get smarter
what's
over time, you know.
what's the government's approach to Bitcoin?
I think, I mean, there's like, it's all a big gray zone, let's say. There's nothing real strict about it. They were working on, the government was working on a gold-backed coin a couple years ago. I don't know how it's going right now. I was also like people also mentioned who were working in the project. We had a discussion with them and all that stuff, but I don't know. I didn't follow up. I don't know how it is going, but so this is my personal view. A corrupt government would like to keep Bitcoin open for their own sake, you know,
Interesting.
because, you know, one day they may need to transfer money somewhere, or,
Right.
you know.
They may
And
need to use it like everybody else is using it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Um,
Bitcoin is always there when you
It's
are
like
in a hard time. So,
it's like fiscal paradise in the internet.
yeah.
So I want to ask a little bit, you know, especially in like North America, in the U.S. market, people follow what the Fed does very closely, and they're looking at, you know, all the activities. And there's a lot of fear that, you know, you could say, well, since 1971, but especially over the last 10 years, the kind of dynamic that you have all described in a acute detail and time frame over the last number of years in your respective countries has also been playing out there, but perhaps to a lesser degree. And one of the results of this monetary policy and this treatment of money has been a broadening inequality, economic and financial inequality, because a lot of that money goes to asset prices as people try to preserve their capital, real estate and precious metals and whatever else. And this prices a lot of people out of those markets. And so they're forced to hold on to that money that is not holding its value. And then so their financial situation worsens all the more quickly. And I think this is part of the reason why we see, you know, unrest of various kinds and social issues. And then, you know, we also watch closely what's happening to pricing, because, you know, if prices go up, the effect is the same. People get priced out of, you know, their groceries. You know, what used to buy them, how, you know, what food for $5 buys them food for $4, food for $3, and everything becomes more expensive. And this can be a spiral, right? And the more the government steps in to try to stop this process from happening because people are complaining about it, the worse they make it. And so I'm just wondering, because over the last few years, each of your respective countries have been dealing with acute forms of this kind of monetary degradation, what has been the effect on prices, on food, on, you know, inequality generally in the respective markets? Thomas?
Okay. Yeah, that's a good point. Here in Lebanon, you know, as I said earlier, many of the essentials, you know, the fuel, wheat, all of that, it's all just subsidized. So basically, at a certain point, remember when the oil prices were going down during the beginning of the pandemic, you know, the price of 1 barrel of oil here in Lebanon was cheaper than the one in Saudi Arabia, which is the biggest oil producer in the world. That's basically because the government has been subsidizing this industry, and what was happening is that because the oil in specific was being subsidized, a lot of it was being smuggled into Syria. Because Syria, there's a lot of sanctions on it from the United States and Europe and whatever. They struggle to actually get oil. So what's happening is that we are getting them the oil at a very cheap, subsidized prices, and the traders of oil here in Lebanon, they're sending them to Syria, and selling them for much higher prices. So that's one of the negatives of subsidies. But that's basically, if you want to look at the essentials, they increased in prices, but not as much as the inflation has been increasing. Probably because of the subsidies, that's first. And second, because of the deflationary nature of these goods. When let's say 1 kilogram of meat, okay, you used to buy 1 kilogram for $10, let's say, and that used to be for 15,000 Lebanese pounds. Now, after the inflation, you can get it for 50,000 LBPs, but that's like $8, $7. You know what I mean? So it didn't increase as this with the same level of the hyperinflation, mainly because when you have a competitive market and people still trying to compete on the prices, they try to lower the prices as much as they can. But there's this aspect of things, and the other aspect is basically the subsidies, where the government is just using the reserves and the confiscated money to subsidize the so-called essentials.
Right.
But if you want to buy, let's say, as Zia was saying, you want to buy an iPhone, that's impossible. You want to buy a laptop, that's impossible. Every technology or imported good, other than nutritional good, it became impossible. You want to travel, that's very hard to do. You want to, I don't know,
If you want to
go.
exit,
Yeah, you want to exit. Even if opting out has become very, very difficult. Many of my friends who are young people, just like I am, have been trying to, flee the country, maybe go to university somewhere else, try to get a job in Europe and in the North America. But even that is very hard because how can you afford airline tickets, especially now with the pandemic? The government imposed a stricter monopoly on these airlines, the Middle East Airlines, which is the Lebanese national airline. So now, last year I went to France, and it cost me with a French, I think it was not French, it was a Romanian company airline, like $200 to go and come back. Right now, using the national airline, which they are national, they gave it a strict monopoly because of we have a pandemic. You have to pay just to go to Paris $2,000, which is crazy with the hyperinflation, with all of that. Yeah, so there's that, and I also heard some stuff that if you present your travel documents and that you're traveling for educational purposes or whatever, they can subsidize your travel. But I'm not sure how much that's working. I've never heard anyone doing it actually, but we've heard about that in the news. So yeah, the main strategy of the government is trying to subsidize and kicking the can even further. And now I don't know if you guys heard about Macron, the French president. He came to Lebanon, and he has some plans to bail out the government. He's giving them an ultimatum. You have to do some reforms, change the faces of the people in government, and we will give you more money. We will bail you out. Keep the can further, subsidize more, not allowing people to kick off from the start. That's the main issue. I mean, I believe the protest started in October 18. I wish if the government had vanished in October 2019, maybe the crisis would have been like 2 months, and people would have recovered, and we would have been living, we're in way better off right now. I mean, it's almost a year, and we We haven't taken off yet. They're not allowing us to take off.
Yeah.
We are not allowed to exit, as already mentioned. That's the main issue. We need ways to opt out, and we are unable to do so.
Yeah, it's this constant problem where all these interventions and all these abuses mean that the market in these closed off economies becomes more and more sparse. Like there's less and less goods and services that people can access, either because they're not coming in the country or they can't be afforded. And then it makes it so that those people naturally want to exit more because the situation is worse and worse and worse. And as a result of them wanting to exit more, they are restricted from doing so even more because the government realizes so many more people are wanting to exit. We've got to stop this. And you're in this virtuous downward cycle of things getting worse and the crackdown being more, total, more complete until something breaks, until there's unrest, until the change in government, until there's hopefully change in the money.
Yeah. The problem is, what I wanted to say is that the main issue is that we're not being able to. I mean, let's say you have a person, you have like someone who's living in poverty. Would you rather give them a fish or teach them how to fish? Right. So if they allow us to go and fish, we're way better off. We don't need subsidies.
Right.
Where as a Lebanese person, we've been doing way better. We've been doing great without any of the government, social welfare and all of that stuff. We've been doing well. We've been doing fine. And whenever it was back in 2017 when the newly elected government decided to increase the wages of the government employees, in a very uncalculated manner. Ever since 2017, we've been going through this downhill. No one is investing anything. Money is being poured to the public sector without any efficiency. And whenever new elections come in, they just hire new public employees. So that's the Lebanese version of Commonwealth. We are somewhere around 4,500 million in population. We have around 400,000 people working in the public sector. That's crazy, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the main issue.
And this is something that I've been talking about quite a bit, but that's inevitable, right? And if you look at Canada, I mean, all the things that you all are saying, I'm seeing the exact same things here, just at a earlier point in the timeline. And as a response to, let's say, COVID, for example, where everyone is prohibited from making a living, you can't open your restaurant, you can't go to work, then a lot of those jobs are going to disappear. A lot of those small businesses are going to close down. And then what those people are going to do when they're looking for a job in the future, when they run out of their paychecks that the government is providing them, they're going to say, well, why don't I just go work for the government? My job is secure. I get benefits. I get healthcare. I get kind of stuff. And then you get a whole economy that's people working for the government, and no value or wealth is being created. It's just being redistributed. And that is just a downward spiral until everybody works for the government. And where's the wealth being created? Nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, there's like this trend here in Lebanon. I failed school. I failed university. Maybe I'll just go to the military. That's like the trend we have here. We have like a lot of people in the army, but we never get into any wars.
Yeah.
Like you say, the U.S. Army, they go to Iraq, get some oil and get some revenue back. But what are we doing with our army? We're not getting any revenue with our army.
Right.
And we also have militia in opposite to our army. So we have a really big army, but for some reason we also need the militia to protect us against. So that's crazy,
Yeah. Daniel, how has everything that's been going on affected quality of life in Argentina?
It's very similar. We're having a lot of price control, a lot of subsidies. Everything you guys are talking, I'm seeing all the similarities. And what we detect is when there's food here is really subsidized, and people start really to trying to arbitrage common goods. In our neighbor countries like Uruguay and and Paraguay, they know that prices here are subsidized, so they cross the frontier, fill up their cars with gas, make buy all the groceries they can, and go back to their country because like market tries to find its way also
Right.
in some sense. And what's happening here in Argentina with in terms of the quarantine, first that we have been quarantined since March. It's the longest quarantine in the world, and people are really being prohibited trying to to work and make their living. There there have been restrictions that it doesn't make any sense anymore. And what we see here, like Thomas was saying in Lebanon, it's more and more people want to work for the government, and it's a downward spiral because they're not, goods are not being produced, and it, it, it gets to a point that it's going to break. We don't know when, but it's going to break.
Right. Zia, how about you? How has quality of life been impacted by everything that's been going on, with the money?
Yeah, it's it's like a storm here. So people wake up one day and they see they're going bankrupt because of something, like with the USD price and the inflation. So I know a lot of people who abandoned their businesses and all of that. So I heard Thomas and Daniel talking about how people want to work for the government because like they see failure. Because but here it's not like that. It's mostly, actually it is taught to the people. It is taught to their, like, people teach it to their children. They convey this. They persuade them to start working with the government. Like we like most people, like even my family, they wanted me to work for the education system here and all of that. But we have a lot of oil money nowadays. It's a lot of oil which can be sold, but we have a lot of oil money. We don't have businesses because businesses are going bankrupt, especially in the last decade or so. So this thing is like, it's somehow working, but until it doesn't, it's one day it's not going to work. It's like with the sanctions on the oil, and with the sanction on doing business with Iran, this thing, this actually cut off the hands of the government to be able to provide, because it's very easy. You have natural resources, you sell them, you get money, and somehow you use them to do like a lot of unspeakable things also in the region, but also to somehow finance the government businesses here in Iran. We also have very big number of people who work for the government, and I told you that this is somehow an attitude here. It's somehow it's a lifestyle here. A lot of people love
The
this
rich,
idea.
yeah,
Yeah,
the rich are the ones that work for the government.
yeah, definitely, because you see most of the time, you see most of the time they actually, there are even people. We have universities here which are actually sponsored by the government and very cheap to attend. They don't take any money from you, and these are the so-called high quality ones. And we see that they built something out of this, but it's not working. The university systems is a failure right now. Maybe it was much better like a decade or 2 decades ago, but this policies uh, took us to the ground, because we need businesses to be able to work with the world, and government cannot dictate new ideas, cannot dictate new industries. They cannot dictate all of this. They cannot plan for it. This kind of planning is a failure all over the world. So most countries in the world understand this, and they they want people to be able to build build new businesses, build new ideas to work with the world and make the country stronger. But here it's like we need to be on our own, and we need to be on our with because of this, because they are actually very rich on resources. If we didn't have all of these resources, they wouldn't have thought about this, because they wouldn't have be able to afford it. So this thing, I don't know if it's the main thing, but I know that it trickles down to this. It helps with this situation of inflation. Yeah, and closed economy cannot work, because you know what I mean. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, totally. Stackmore, how has quality of life been affected by what's been going on in Turkey?
Yeah, so like this is, for example, yeah. First of all, I want to start with this classic frog experiment. Probably all of you have heard it. If you throw a frog into boiling water, it jumps out. But if you keep the frog inside the bowl and then heat it slowly, it dies inside. Doesn't realize that it's getting too hot for it. By the way, this is not an actual true experiment, but it has been told so for a very long time, and I was very surprised when I heard it wasn't. So literally, I don't know, like we have the like me, Thomas, Daniel, and Zia have lessons to be learned for you guys, and I really appreciate. I know you, for example, that you are aware of the devastating effects of inflation, even with the small amount of it you have. For us, it's easy. Like, you go out, you see that the prices are different all of a sudden. Like, for example, right now, if you want to say you want to buy a 2-liter Volkswagen Passat car, you pay 1 unit for the actual cost of the car and 2.2 units to the government. So you buy 3.2 cars and give 2.2 of it to the government as a tax. It's simple things like that. But with the Turkish lira collapsing and people spending less, for example, like Nike had its Middle East and Africa office in Istanbul. And with the revenues going down, they moved away to Dubai. Or like Apple also had a bigger office in Istanbul. They also moved to Dubai. And a lot of multinational companies moved their MENA offices from Istanbul to other places. So this took high-paying jobs, and a lot of people transferred to the other offices. So this also brought the quality of people down, like higher educated, more skilled people also left the country. And once you cannot generate high value, it becomes like people start making money off information asymmetries and like how close they are to the government, and like the whole value chain of the country gets damaged. So I think that's like one of the main things here. Also, like similarly, for example, California is losing a lot of people now because of taxation.
Mm-hmm.
Like people started to move to Texas and all other states, and this brings the overall quality of the place down, because
Yeah. This is actually leads into my my last question for you guys, and it is, we talk a lot about citadels in the Bitcoin space, right? And whether you think of a citadel as, like a mountaintop fortress with high walls and just great, like kind of like a Camelot, right, inside, and then everything else outside is shit. Or if you think of citadel as a more personal thing, like an independently living off-grid home somewhere far away from cities where you have everything you need, energy, food, whatever. Like the idea of a citadel is like a safe place where you are free to be and do what you want. And this was a half joking meme a couple of years, a little while ago, not too long ago. And with COVID, it's become a far more serious consideration because, Stackmore, as you were just mentioning, with the changes to taxation, the social unrest that accompanies these, what's happening with money, the imperative to think to yourself, like, am I safe here? Can I live the life I want here? you know, these considerations we start to think about more. And that's where, you know, the Citadel meme has kind of gotten more press lately. But I think you are, as we keep saying in this conversation, the countries that you guys are in right now are a little bit further ahead on the timeline of what we expect pretty much everywhere in the world. And so I have to think that maybe these considerations have been on your mind maybe earlier, or taken more seriously than people, you know, let's say in the US, for example, might be considering them right now. And so my question to you guys is, you know, what are you afraid for the quality of life, or even your personal safety in the regions that you're currently living? And do you have plans to change your circumstance to increase your level of safety or freedom, either by, again, you know, moving to the countryside away from everybody and just hoping things, you know, calm down at some point, or actually trying to extricate yourselves from the current region and find, you know, a region that's more suitable, or has more accommodative individual policy, you know, kind of like the sovereign individual thesis. You know, have any of you guys gotten to the point of seriously considering that, or planning, or just like to get your insights on that idea of, you know, maybe not being able to stay where you are currently? Thomas?
Yeah, John, as you can see, I am right now in my apartment in Beirut. And I can tell you that this is the first time I'm here since the start of the, you know, lockdown in February. You know, ever since this lockdown started, I, you know, took everything and I went to my village house in the countryside. It's basically my, you know, my parents' house. And I've been staying there because, you know, living here in Beirut has been, you know, it's fine. It's not like the worst, but I think this is better for me, you know, to live somewhere, better weather and no pollution. No one can rob you, just, you know, living alone. And, you know, for me, the Citadel is, you know, the second option, you know, being a serene person, being safe, you know, opting out, trying to make money on my own terms. So you can say I've been living the semi-citadel life, and I've been trying, you know, as hard as I can, as much as I can, you know, to come up with, you know, ways to make money. It's not that easy here. Uh, you know, you know, lately I have me and my dad have been working on a small land I have also in my village. I've been, you know, setting it up, and you know, I have this like a plan. Maybe after the next bull run, to build a small cabin house and, you know, try to homestead a little bit, try to find ways, because the way, you know, inflation is going, I think it's going to be much more costly for me to go to work than to actually work. You know, if my car breaks down, I'm not going to be able to afford to, you know, fix it. If the subsidies on fuel were suddenly vanished, I will not be able to, you know, fill my car. So that's the issue. So ever since, you can say, January, February, I've been trying to, you know, to come up with things and ways, and stacking sats as much as I can, you know, to exit on this, and, you know, try to, you know, build a better life, you know, in my village. This is where I come from, and after all, and yeah, that's the plan basically.
So no intention or desire to leave. You'd prefer to kind of do the countryside thing.
I mean, I have to be honest with you. I love life here. I love the Mediterranean life, and, you know, the mountains. You know, my village is an altitude of 1,100 meters. If any of you guys ever kind of visit Lebanon, I'll be happy to show you around. It's a beautiful country. You know, if I ever get an opportunity maybe to leave, and, you know, things become like very bad, maybe I will. I'm not gonna say I wouldn't, but, you know, my first plan is to try to find something and do something here while I still can. You know.
Right. Zia, I think we lost Daniel. I'm not sure if he'll be back, but Zia, what's your approach to the Citadel considerations?
Yeah, it's gonna be a bit shocking to you. So prepare yourself. So maybe there are millions of young males like me who don't have passports here in Iran. That's like it's a very very big obstacle for us. You can't leave the country. I've never set foot outside of Iran, and I know that there are millions who are in the same situation. It's mostly due to this thing where they take you to military service for 2 years and they ruin your life actually. So I'm not willing to do this, and I'm protesting it, and I'm by not going and doing it, like denying this thing, and yeah. So this thing stops me from leaving the country. So it's a very
So you
uh,
mean
very
if
acute.
if you don't do the military service, they won't grant you a passport? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, it's
Okay.
if you don't do the military service, you are not able to get something which is called I don't know what could be called in English, but it's something good. It's like a license that you have the license, which says that this license announces that you've done the military service. And if you have this license, now you can apply for a passport here in Iran.
Right.
This is
Right.
for males only, but I know that all people here in Iran dealing with this because are dealing with this thing because either they have people in their family which are not able to leave the country, or even or either they are uh, they are dealing with poverty because the economic situation is very terrible here. So uh, my first impression from a citadel is to leave the country and find a place, find a place outside of Iran that I believe in living it, believe in their people and all of that. But the thing is that you cannot live. So my so I decided recently I decided to build my whole income, and actually if there's a business, if I build a business, I would build it around Bitcoin and foreign income mostly. Anyway, so a Bitcoin business and a foreign income business inside Iran. So until that I find a way to circumvent this situation, that I can so that I can leave the country. And if you build your business around Bitcoin, you're free to go anywhere in the world and do and carry on with your business. This is one of the advantages of Bitcoin. So yes, this is the situation with yeah, the, yeah, for me actually.
So for you, the Citadel idea is kind of establishing a non-geographically determined form of income around Bitcoin so that you have the freedom to leave when you're able to do so. And in the interim period, do you give any consideration to getting into rural areas and outside of urban areas, or is that not
Yeah,
of interest to you?
that's not very possible too, because real estate is it's so expensive, it's legendary expensive. You cannot buy real estate. Most people who have real estate in Iran have it from back in the days. Now people like if you get paid very well here in Iran, very well, that means something like $1,000 actually. So if you get paid like this, you would need like to work decades to be able to afford something here in Iran.
Wow. So everyone's forced to live in the cities, is what you're saying.
Yeah, there's a lot of people living in rural areas, but it's like you cannot go to a rural area and buy it and build something because
Right.
this economic situation affects all people.
Yeah. Stackmore, what are you looking at for citadels?
Well, I'm all in for studies. Like, I mean, okay, so we have a farm. Our family business is agriculture. So we have cows, farms, fruit trees next to the river,
Sounds
storage place.
lovely.
Yeah, we can make our own fertilizer. Uh, we need to still work on seeds, but not that far away from self-sovereignty. Like we have some issues with electricity at the moment. We don't have our own, but yeah, could happen actually in a couple of years. And the funny thing is that where our farm is located, around the farm, we find ancient Greek columns. So there was a citadel once there.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And so for
So
you,
the policies, this Greek cities, something police, this, that. There was
yeah.
something there.
So for you, leaving Turkey is not really in your mind. Just establishing something in a rural area where you're self-sufficient with your own food and energy and have enough space is kind of what you're thinking about.
Well, I lived outside Turkey for a while. I studied in Arizona. I lived in the States for 5 years. I worked for a German company. Now they are owned by a Japanese company. So I've been to different places, and really, like, this is not me, my nationalistic side speaking. The city I live is one of the most livable places in the world. Like, maybe Barcelona I could move to, but the food is great here. The weather is great. We have nice beaches. The
Stackmore
people,
likes the Mediterranean life.
yeah,
Just
yeah,
like
yeah.
Sounds
Like,
amazing.
no, really though, like if you live this lifestyle, you would
exactly.
understand. I know what Thomas meant when he said, like, I don't want to live Mediterranean.
Mm.
So
Well, there's no place better. Food, weather, it's amazing.
yeah, it's good, really. It's like I
Get
say
those.
the hardware of this country is really good. Like, the atmosphere, the nature, this, that. The software part, the government part is messed up, and hopefully we'll eventually upgrade it. So
Man, I'd go there just for the fresh figs every year when they come in
yeah,
season.
yeah,
I fucking love those things.
yeah, you should come. Like, I'm in Izmir, and fig place is called Aydın, the city next to us. So
You
it's
tell
cool.
me when they're in season, and I'll show up with a big bag next year.
Yeah,
Um,
you know.
I don't know if we got Daniel back. Daniel, are you there?
Here I had to cut video because I have internet problems,
Sure,
connection
sure.
problems.
So the question was just around citadels, around what you're, as things degrade with the money, as more social problems emerge, as governments become more authoritarian to try to fix this stuff. Do you have ideas or thoughts on, leaving Argentina or moving to the countryside or getting yourself in some way set up to avoid the chaos that may be coming from everything that's going on?
Yeah, I believe the internet is the most free place we have right now in the world, and my biggest wish is to like Sia said, is to try to work from the internet, get some income from Bitcoin, and being basically anywhere. Uh, I think that will be my ideal citadel, if you say. Uh,
And if you could do that, would you ideally stay in Argentina?
That's the fiat internet. Oh God.
Well, if he comes back, we'll get him that. But gents, I really appreciate you guys not only taking the time to have this discussion, but being so open in sharing your thoughts and what's going on in your countries and your lives. I know some aspects of it must be very difficult, but like I keep saying throughout this conversation, I think these are issues that we're all going to be facing at some point. And to have your perspectives and yeah, just for all of us to not only know, but also just to connect and know that there's a camaraderie in how we're facing similar problems. And that's the beautiful thing about Bitcoin, is how it's bringing us all together over a unified mission and a unified solution to a lot of this stuff. I mean, that's why I do this show. I just it's a big ray of hope in a world that definitely needs it. So I'm just going to go around the room. Any final thoughts before we sign off, or places you want to direct people that are listening, anything like that, Thomas?
Okay, first of all, thank you, John, and thank you guys for sharing everything. If we have any Lebanese listeners right here, I encourage you to go on bitcoindulibond.org. This is where our community is. You can have, if you have any questions, anything, how to buy Bitcoin in Lebanon and how to secure a wallet and all of that stuff, that's your place. And yeah, that's all. And thank you guys again.
Sweet. Zia?
Yeah, thank you for having me in this show. So I wanted to say that we need this is somehow an open message to most Bitcoin entrepreneurs, most Bitcoin people who are active in the space who want to do Bitcoin businesses. I encourage you to increase your interest and invest in Bitcoin businesses and make them bigger because I see the way for us, at least for us people here in Iran, is to deal with Bitcoin business, to work with Bitcoin businesses. Like most people right now, most young people here in Iran need to work with foreign countries, with foreign businesses, and use Bitcoin for their income because the economy here is not helping them. So I would love to see more Bitcoin businesses in this space. And if anyone is interested in the Iranian communities, just ping me on Twitter or anything. We have a good Bitcoin community on Twitter, on Telegram mostly, and we will be very willing to help you understand the situation here in Iran. And if you want to help us or work with us, we would be very glad.
Awesome. Stackmore?
Yeah, like thanks for hosting us. Even though like we share a lot of similarities, I don't think we have communicated between each other on this level as well. So it was also good to have this communication. So yeah, like I always encourage people to get into Bitcoin. I give them a lot of resources, but now I don't know. I think it's better for them to start with buying stuff, and then they can do whatever they want. They can get wrecked in altcoins, and then eventually, if they understand, they'll come back to Bitcoin side again. So I like, but I really want the Turkish exchanges to start the DCA options. I also talked to them about this. Hopefully, we'll see it someday soon, because then, we have a weakness against FOMO, and DCA could kind of fix that. So I hope we see it more in action.
Yeah, I mean, I hope all exchanges develop that because it's such a better solution for stacking than
It's
being
really
susceptible
simple.
to FOMO.
It's
what?
very simple for them to integrate that.
Right.
Not a
Right.
big deal at all. They already have the KYCs and the deals with the banks.
Yeah.
So.
Daniel, I think you just came back. We're just doing kind of final thoughts, and you're the last one, so you came back just in time for closing remarks.
For a roundup. As I was saying about the Citadel, Argentina has been going through this process for more than 70 years. They try to be a commonwealth state, but they don't have the sufficient organization to do it. And it's a process that it's been going on for a very, very long while. And as me, I think that the most asymmetric bet that I have to improve my life and my financial situation is Bitcoin and the internet. Basically, it's a window outside of what happens here. So I think we're just gonna keep dollar cost average and stacking sats. That's what's left for us to do.
Totally.
And
Well,
say,
go ahead.
no, just that. And I think Bitcoin is the most asymmetrical bet I have right now in my current situation. And I would be stupid not to participate in it because I think it has too much potential.
I couldn't agree more. Well, gentlemen, like I said, thank you so much for the time. Thank you for being open, and thank you for being some of the awesome Bitcoiners that are spread out all throughout the world. This is literally the revolution in action, and we're all a part of it, and it only keeps going from here. So I really appreciate you guys, your input, and I'm sure we'll speak again in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thanks
you.
a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks
Bye,
a lot
everyone.